I don't know about you, but I'm completely exhausted. I hope you are too. I hope that's a sign that you've been worked hard and your brains are working and you need a drink. The good news is the drinks, which have been supplied by, yes, an innovative British drinks company, free of charge for us. They're breaking into the established markets, making the big boys run for their money. And our donor supplier of cocktails is here somewhere. Where is he? There he is. Can you just take a bow? And just come up here. So this was an important moment last night. Our first donor entrepreneur sponsor using this event to highlight his innovative products. You have 60 seconds only, and I'm going to blow the whistle, to tell those who weren't here last night about the company and where they can find out more and how they can order your drinks.
So we're a London-based drinks incubator. We help grow brands from nothing right the way through to hopefully multi-millions. So you can find us online. The company name is Boutique Bar Brands, or BBB for short, and so boutiquebarbrands.com. And yes, some of the drinks which are behind the bar, so the gin, the Freya, which is a birch sap spirit, and the mixers we represent. And last night we had our beer, which is Island Records, which you can buy in your local Fuller's pubs if you're in London, and that is a very innovative, wonderful, refreshing beer. So thank you very much to George and everybody here for inviting me down, and hopefully be back next year. Hopefully.
The good news is there'll be 2,000 here next year, not 200. Thank you very much. Having been an entrepreneur, I know that early money, early friends, early support, early donations are the ones that we really value. And I look forward to you being with us in 10 years as the inaugural first donor supplier. And I hope we've grown the market for you. Obviously, responsible drinking, everybody, please. I have a really important announcement to make in a moment. But first of all, I wanted just to say one or two thank yous. Steve and I and his team and mine have been on quite a journey. Various people said to me in July, when I started to mull on the idea of seizing the moment and embracing a festivalism, a conservative festivalism and an entrepreneurialism, and try and reach out and signal to a generation who see politics today not capturing the zeitgeist of their world. Well, George, it's absolutely brilliant, but we couldn't possibly do it by September. When Damien Green said to me, it's brilliant, but you couldn't possibly do it by September, I said, okay, Damien, watch and wait. And it's been a busy summer, and I need to thank a few people. Firstly, the team at Reaction. Ian Martin immediately said to me, you're going to need a digital platform to do all of this, and just gave me the whole team. He probably didn't know I was going to need the whole team for 6 weeks. So I want to thank, I'll come to Steve in a minute, but Paul, who sponsors and supports all of Steve's important work, Ian, Olivia, Pierre, and Alistair. I've chased and run you harder than I ever had any right to, and thank you very much for all the work. They've put together all the program, all the speaker itinerary, all of that work with me ringing them at 5 a.m. and emailing them. Thank you very much for everything you've done. My parliamentary team, I run a series of internships and try and always bring on young people into my office because I think there's too much cynicism around Westminster and we need the young and talented and energetic. It means I have to keep retraining people, but it means I have the most incredible alumni network around the world who come out at election time and persuade people to vote for me. They've been led by Francis, my chief of staff, who has demonstrated the most amazing capacity to run a team in a way that I certainly couldn't do when I was your age. And with Emily, and with Anthony, and with Hilary, and with Aaron, and with Fiona. Thank you. You've been the most amazing team. Fiona, by the way, hand-painted all these signs, the loo signs and the tent signs. They've been in our kitchen for the last 10 days. You win the Blue Preacher Prize for authentic festival signage. Particular thanks, Steve, to you. You've been incredibly patient, a creative dynamo, a force of energy, and how you haven't told me to get off the phone at various points, I just don't know. I wanted then to thank particularly Mark, who has hosted this here in his garden. He's been the lead entrepreneur behind this and connected us with a whole series of other entrepreneurs, which will lead and talks to the announcement I'm about to make. He's been the voice of calm, efficient, business-like delivery, while Steve and I have run around saying, why don't we invite them, and them, and them, and do that? And Mark put all of this together, got all the tents organised, all the event logistics, but he's also been the lead entrepreneur behind the programme. So Mark, wherever you are, where are you? He's outside. Many, many thanks. And to all our entrepreneurial supporters and donors, you will have already worked out, because you're clever people, this isn't free. Putting up these incredibly beautiful and sophisticated tents provided by Hurlingham Marquees wasn't free. They gave us a really good deal. Everything has been provided by entrepreneurs giving us a good deal, but it wasn't free. But we didn't want to charge any of you. Why on earth would you pay to go to an event that is called Tory Glastonbury? We wanted to bring you here and give you a chance to see and ask whether you think it's any good. So please, as you leave later, hopefully having had a few cocktails, please don't miss voting. And this one you can vote early and often. There are 2 ballot papers out on the voting desk, and there's a proper ballot box. The first is whether you think we've done any good. Would you like to support this? Would you think it's worth pursuing? Do you want us to pack up and go back and carry on doing what we were doing? Or do you want to see us develop it next year? And the other is, for those of you who've been inspired or have an idea that you didn't get out, just scribble it down here, draw a picture, put a word, give us your email address, and we will follow up in due course. Please don't leave without filling those in. Vote early and vote often. This is the announcement. You've all been asking, well, what happens next? The feedback has been extraordinary, and I hope that people have captured what, for me, was the big idea behind this, which is, if we're going to inspire other people with the idea of good politics, if we're going to reach out and connect to a generation who see politics linked to a capitalism that isn't working for them, then a generation of us who believe that capitalism can and must work better have to adjust and reach out and open up and show them that we're prepared to ask the difficult questions. That's very difficult to do in the mainstream business of everyday government. So that's why it's called the Big Tent. It's open. It's open to people who come from all political traditions and none. It's open to people who don't want to join a political party but want to come and speak to people who are in politics. It's open and big because it's inclusive, and we want this tent, this big tent, to go around the country. And our idea is that next year we would have 2 or 3 regional events like this. We've already had bids from the Northeast, always the first. They want us to bring the big tent up north and stimulate a debate about political, economic and social renewal. We've had offers from other people around the country, would we go there? I'd like us to have a really big tent event next summer. Imagine 20 or 30 marquees like this. Imagine one on housing that is a demonstrator of all the new models of housing that are coming, the self-build, the green technology, the clean tech. Imagine a place where the very best of British housing innovation was on site, where you could see it, where the talks were about how that technology works, how you as citizens, how your councils could buy it, where deals were done, where people started to say, well, we'll buy those up in our area, where councils are forced to confront innovation, and where the entrepreneurs developing the solutions to the problems we face get a voice. And we, the politicians who get what they're doing, can listen and channel their ideas. As chair of the Prime Minister's Policy Board, I have a privileged backdoor into number 10, and I want to use it to drive that domestic renewal that we need. And I hope we can get sponsors. Imagine for a minute the automotive tent, the housing tent. Think about, in your area, who might want to sponsor being in there to showcase the best. But it's also about the spirit of entrepreneurship. That spirit we talked about last night. The spirit I wrote about recently in the Telegraph. If you sat down in a committee in Whitehall and talked about entrepreneurship, you'd say, well, we're looking for people who will start something without any funding from government, something that's likely to fail, put their own money and wealth at risk, employ other people before they can really afford to, guarantee their employment rights and their pension rights before they can afford to, invest in research and development, invest in marketing, grow the business, then hire and train more people, and create a place of ownership and of support for their employees. Oh, they wouldn't do that. I mean, no one would do that. No one would take that risk and go out and create these things called great companies, but guess what? They do. And I think we need to celebrate that spirit. And for a generation who see big government, big debt, big problems, driving that insurgency, that demand for a fresh way. I think the spirit of entrepreneurialism, that zeitgeist of enterprise, of having a go, of breaking the rules, of doing it a different way, of doing it your way, could capture that zeitgeist, and we could do two things. Reassure a new generation that capitalism can work for them by reforming markets, by showing that challenger banks can do better than the old banks, by reforming the energy market, using technology to show that we can empower customers again, reforming the way data laws work so that people get rewarded for their data footprint. I think we could use the market to really make capitalism work and to drive up productivity in the public sector. And if we're going to make this moment of Brexit, whether you voted for it or not, a moment of national renewal, surely we've got to make it a moment in which we unleash that positive spirit of purposive entrepreneurship. So it's to capture that zeitgeist that we're announcing today. We've created the Capital Ideas Foundation, a non-party political, charitable foundation of entrepreneurship for entrepreneurship to fund two important things. One, policy work. It isn't going to be a think tank. It won't hire 40 of the brightest people. It'll farm that work out to think tanks. And as this rising tide of anti-capitalism shapes public discourse, we'll pick the arguments that have to be won, we'll do the research, we'll mobilize, and we'll make sure those arguments are put out clearly and communicated well. But secondly, we want to grow this tent and grow this festival and take it around the country and use it as a way of celebrating that spirit of entrepreneurship. And on your voting forms tonight, we're asking you, please, do you think this is a good idea? If not, we won't do it. Would you like to support in any way? Money, a direct debit, even of £1 a month would help. If you don't do that, then is there any other way you could help? But the idea is that we could go from here today and use this as something that moves around the country. I hope you'll support it. If you don't, I have a day job. If you don't want us to do this again, it's absolutely fine. But if you do, please tell us. Please get involved. Let's make this, those of you here today who think this is great and would like to do it again next year, the project committee for next year's Big Tent Festival. Let's defeat the cynics and show that there is positive energy in this country. People do want a good politics, and they want a politics with a spirit that if you believe in it enough and are prepared to have a go, you can make a difference. And now I'm going to hand over to my partner in arms, a partner in crime on the parliamentary side. To make a difference, we go into politics. In the end, you're going to want us to make a difference for you in Parliament and in politics. And I want to introduce my great friend and colleague, Philip Lee, an MP just down the road, who's been a huge stalwart in this programme, behind the scenes, helping me to make sure that those in Parliament understand what we're doing. Philip, could I give you the last word to close out and reassure people that we can make a difference?
Thank you, George. Thanks, George. Can I just add, my Chief of Staff, Mike Burgess, has, I think, thrown himself in the last couple of weeks into the organisation of this, and he deserves a lot of thanks from all of us. It's a privilege to round off today's proceedings. Thank you for asking me to do so, George. I found today refreshing, stimulating, and particularly enjoyable. Above all, it's given me great hope for the future, and hope that valuable political commodity is what we need right now. Before I get into what we do next, I want to pay tribute to George and thank each one of you for being here. You have given up valuable time, and it is appreciated. Without George's vision and your contributions, we would be no further forward. And I do believe we have taken an important step forward today, and let me explain why. Because today we face a pace of change greater than the world has ever yet experienced. Because today huge challenges are bubbling just beneath the surface, domestically and internationally. And because today our politics is paralysed. Too many people have given up on politics or have not yet realised their own stake in it. They are weary of the status quo and have turned to the truth twisters and the peddlers of prejudice who have filled our political vacuum. The fractures in our society are more evident and resented than ever. north and south, old and young, rich and poor. Old party dividing lines are proving irrelevant in this century. But today, we have seen a first glimmer of hope that we will rise to the occasion. The issue for our times is renewal. No society, no nation, no political entity can stand still while the world changes around it and expect to survive and prosper. And today, we have begun the hard work of that renewal. I had the opportunity to dip into each of today's sessions. Allow me to highlight just one of the big themes, which will need a lot more attention in the future. Demographic change is the domestic challenge of our times. Our economy, our society, and our politics are structured to favour the over 60s above the under 40s. Intergenerational inequality is at an all-time high, and it's difficult to see what's in it for those of us who have yet to buy a house, yet to get an education, yet to find a good job, and can only see a future of debt. Or for those of us who have started a family but can't provide what we would want for our children. Or for those of us torn between the competing and expensive demands in time and money of young children, aging parents and grandparents, as well as a demanding work life. To address the current settlement, we need a more meritocratic, more caring approach and better support from government or community so that we can invest in our greatest talents, support our most vulnerable, and value productive effort. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's also important to point out what we haven't spoken about. We've had tense on the economy, society, and politics, but not on the world and our place in it. The House of Commons also has a domestic focus. Since the summer, we have managed to debate incontinence, but not North Korea. Now, trust me, as a doctor, incontinence matters a lot. But our global role needs more attention if we do not want to lose it. Crucially, what does a future world require of us? Answer that question, and everything else will follow. Above all, we must keep the spirit of today alive. We know that any democracy, any political party, is only as good as its people. Democracy doesn't just happen. Every generation has to fight for it in its own way. We must keep the ideas coming. We must make sure that every person in this country realizes they have a stake in our politics and is motivated and able to get involved, whether that be in local communities, nationally, or globally. Each one of us has our own motivations. My own date back to when I first started working as a doctor, not 10 miles from here. Devotees of the Channel 5 TV programme GP Behind Closed Doors, of which I'm sure there are many in the tent, will know the slough surgery I work in and the challenging community it serves, the lack of social mobility, the dysfunctional families, the failure of integration, the decline in personal responsibility, the absence of hope. I have seen all of these things up close and personal, how they corrode our society, how they erode cohesiveness, and how they ruin lives. That is why I decided to dedicate my working life to serving my country. Each of you will have come here driven by similar stories, rooted in your experience, your concern for others, and your hope for the future. We must do all we can to propagate the principles and values we share. Otherwise, I fear they will die with us. George, like all of us, you took a long, hard look at our political scene, at the challenges that lie ahead, and you realized that we need to do a lot better. Like all of us, you have immense faith in our country, in the inventiveness and work ethic of our people, in the power of our innovation, ideas, and networks, in our ability to change with the times, in what our democracy can achieve for itself and for the world. But unlike most, you are making change happen. You are bringing all of your energy, thoughtfulness, and integrity to bear, all of your enterprise, passion, and generosity of spirit, and that of so many other people too. This is an extraordinarily talented, dedicated, experienced group, and what you have started will bring renewal our country needs, if we keep it up. I'm proud to call you my friend, George, and I'm proud to be part of this First Ideas Festival alongside so many outstanding people. I hope that the festival will have a long and productive life. You have challenged us to make our politics worthy again. It is up to us to rise to the challenge. Our children will not and should not forgive us if we fail. Thank you very much.